Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Also, thank you for coming back if you were in the morning already. This session is part of a super exciting program that we're running today. This morning we had blockchain brunch, looking at public service use cases for blockchain. This afternoon will be the ecosystem exchange sessions that we're running, where we go into a little bit more depth about the Netherlands and Germany, and basically explore like what are the different ecosystems like, and what are the opportunities for collaboration there. And then this evening, for those registered, we're meeting at the Dutch embassy to also learn a bit more about the high-level speakers and the high-level attendees there. During the sessions that we have on blockchain technology between the Netherlands and Germany, and also on the political approach to blockchain. Right, so it's actually, I shouldn't talk too much. I'm just here to tell you some of the household things for today. One is that if you're joining to the embassy and you would like to join us on the bus that we have organized for that, please pre-register in the coffee break. There will be a table just outside in the coffee area where you can register for that and pick up a wristband, which you need to join.
With you when you come there.
Right. So I think, having said that, there's only one thing that I need to tell you before we really kick off, and that is that this event will be live streamed. There's a camera in the back and there's a camera over there. We are live on YouTube right now, so don't forget to share the stream also on Twitter, LinkedIn, or whatever other dodgy social media platforms you're on. Having said that, it's perhaps you should call Ricardo on stage, who will be your host for the rest of the afternoon. Perhaps a warm welcome for Ricardo.
Good afternoon, everybody. A pleasure to see so many faces here. So I'll be hosting the afternoon today. I won't introduce myself now because I have the pleasure of introducing myself in one of the other slides afterwards. I'm so excited to be here this afternoon. And with this, I would like to call our first speaker on stage, Catherine Bischoff, Chief Relationship Officer at Factory Berlin, who has provided us with great support to make this event happen, and who is also the hosting location of this event today. Catherine, stage is yours. Take it away.
Thank you, and welcome to Factory Berlin. Who was here this morning already in this crowd? Oh, okay, lots of you. And have you had a chance to take a walk around, to meet some people, talk, chat, or just tap into the Wi-Fi maybe? Well, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of what's going on here, what this place is all about, so you don't get confused and use the bad word we call co-working. We don't like to use that word here. So I'll take about 10 to 12 minutes to kind of establish the groundwork and share a bit of the history of how we came to be and where our role is here, and also in conjunction with BerChain, since we are founding members of BerChain as well, and why we would do this. So for those of you who are not from Berlin, and I would just spend 2 days in the UK with a bunch of people from the Netherlands, and it was all about Amsterdam, the place to be. Oh no, Berlin, the place to be. So it's ironic that the slide is actually called Berlin, the place to be. The activity here is obviously really intense. There's a lot of funding here in the city specifically. Berlin is the largest hub of activity in the startup space in all of Germany. So over 50% of investments and companies take place here in the city. The rest is dispersed in the rest of the country. There's fantastic activity happening in Munich, certainly in Frankfurt as well. And then, Germany being super decentralized, smart people, lots of talent and research institutes all over the country. But Berlin kind of takes the bulk of the lion's share when it comes to capital, talent, and thereby the sheer amount of startups that we have here. Plus the fact that it's an attractive city to live in, so it attracts a lot of young people that want to live here in this crazy city use the creative scene and go out to clubs at night, because it's not just about work here. It's very different from the Valley, I would say, in that sense, and certainly a lot of other hubs in Europe where the affordability of life kind of leads you to make different decisions, kind of how you work and surround yourself with inspiration. And we really incorporate that into our DNA, and we talk a lot about collaboration here, and it's not just yet another flashy word or the term community that gets thrown around a lot. We really believe in it, and we have a whole concept around it, and a lot of team members, we're 75 in total, that really spend almost all of their time just focusing on how to build and strengthen community at any given point. And that means from the first moment that you walk in the door until you potentially find that founder, to the investor network that we can introduce you to, the talent that you can hire, and maybe your first clients that you can acquire here, and hopefully grow out of the community, because we support a very specific stage of startup. And so our history started long before we actually existed. Our history and our founder is kind of obsessed with Andy Warhol, and so the term factory has nothing to do with industry or the Industrial Revolution or the fact that people stand and make things, but it's actually inspired by the Silver Factory in New York, because that was also a place where a lot of different people in different disciplines, from the high society to the drug dealers of the street, came together and literally came and made things. It was an incredibly creative outlet and den of activity. And when our founder purchased the first building in Mitte to open a campus, essentially it was to create that type of environment, because he became an avid seed investor in town, and he wanted to house his startups in there, and he offset all that risk by bringing in big tech companies that could pay the rent, and the kind of kids that were just trying to figure out what they wanted to do could literally be in there for free. And then we focused on growing that team collaboration and team opportunity, and said, okay, let's give everyone a seat, and they can dedicate their space to Factory Berlin. But we realized it's not about the real estate. So you're sitting on, bright chairs, and there's all these design elements around the house, and I do believe that having the right physical infrastructure is actually key to creating some type of environment and a sense of being, but it's not it, because we know of many of examples that do that and it doesn't lead to anything. And so we said we want to get away from talking about the actual physicality of the space, and we want to talk about who's actually in here and what they're doing and why that's more important. So we changed completely to a membership model whereby every single person that is part of the community has to apply to be part of the community. And that applies for the corporate members that we have here, if it's a team from Audi that is interested in working from the space and running their pilot projects, or if that's the individual student, the freelancer, the solopreneur, the founder, the investor. We really need to have a good understanding of what they want to do here, because just being here for the sake of being here is really not enough, and you have to be open and willing to kind of share and collaborate. And over the last 12 months, we've really expanded from just being a classical tech community with lots of startups and technologists in it, to embracing the real DNA of Berlin and bringing the whole creative class in here. So we've started a joint venture with a music studio. We're running an artist in residence program. They're working on incredible things, a lot of blockchain and art themes, AI and music, for example. So that's really a thing that we want to focus on, because we believe in the power of interdisciplinarity. So what are we? We come here, you see, there's people buzzing about, you see that there's labs with logos on the walls, there's people randomly sitting around. And so we have different types of members in the community. We have the individual talents, so there's about 2,500 of those. We have strategic partners that come in here and they do programming, they provide us with the resources and their network, and they inform the rest of the community. They give them access to either talent building programs, to investment opportunities, to accelerators across the globe, or generally pro bono services for scale-ups that are looking to get into other markets, for example. Of course, the party has to be paid for by someone, so we have to have corporate members in here, and they obviously have different needs and wants for why they come in here. Some of them are looking to get closer to innovation, let's say, source talent, perhaps acquire startups, or at the very least, understand that there's this massive and radical shift happening in our economy, and that the generation that they potentially could have attracted years ago to their companies is no longer interested in working in those types of constructs. So their entire kind of business model is not only being disrupted from a product standpoint, but their whole HR process and like the way that they're structured is also kind of in peril for a lot of them. So they come in here, they want to become attractive to talent, they want to understand the needs and wants of talents, and it's pretty interesting to source and follow some of those conversations. And then, of course, we have many startups in our portfolio that are here. We help them at the early stage. We focus on pre-seed to maximum Series A startups, and then they grow out of the community because then they're crunching down, they're growing teams. They really need to be kind of in their own spaces. So then for them, they really need to have a space, and we keep the alumni, we keep the founders in sort of alumni pool. So they come in for different ideas, as I said, get access to talent. They want to invest potentially. They want to run innovation projects, prototype, and potentially find a co-founder here in the building. So to date, we have 3,500 members. What's really beautiful about it is that it's incredibly rich and diverse, with over 70 nationalities represented here. We have these two physical locations, one in Mitte and one here in Kreuzberg, that are super active all the time. We have events like this almost on a daily basis. It's pretty overwhelming, the opportunity to learn and expand your network at any given time here. We have a lot of female founders in our community because we support them specifically, and it's a huge task with female founding being at an all-time low in Germany. And then many partners that help us do that. Some of them are here. We don't need to read testimonials, but to give you an idea of how we kind of separate the two buildings and the methodology and the programming behind it, is that Mitte is really focused on kind of the networking and the business club mentality, also because it's close to where most of the VCs are. And here we have a lot of the programmatic activity. So we have Germany's first university that's dedicated solely to software engineering, interaction design, and project management. They're here in-house. There's 370 students here. It's absolutely one of our best assets to have them here in-house. They're a huge talent pool. They work on projects on a non-stop basis throughout the year. So they're working with the startups and the corporates here in-house. We have Entrepreneur First here running their program, getting top PhDs and postdocs, and bringing them together, forcing them to find a co-founder and hopefully found a company, build a business, get investment, and that's great deal flow for us as well. And then, of course, the corporates that I mentioned before that are here running their entrepreneurship program. I'll just mention Audi specifically because it may be interesting for some of you who are potentially from the corporate realm. They have a program here whereby employees from headquarters in Ingolstadt have to convince their boss that they can take off, basically do like a sabbatical and leave of absence from their regular job in Ingolstadt. They come here for 3 to 6 months. They live in kind of like a commune. It's kind of a bit like a Big Brother type concept. Live together, they come work here, they build new project ideas, they have to have an MVP by the end of that time. They pitch that back to HQ and hopefully get buy-in from management and senior leadership to actually implement those ideas. It's become this incredibly successful program that they've run. They've tripled it in size ever since because it's not only interesting, the ideas that are stemming out of it, but it's become this HR perk for the company. There you go. I think I'm good with my time. If you have any questions, drop me a note. There's my email, and I'm happy to chat with you also in the coffee break. I'm wishing you a wonderful day. Blockchain and the blockchain community kind of lives and thrives really well here. We have one of the largest blockchain communities in the city. We have 360 self-identified blockchain enthusiasts here in our circles, and BerChain is definitely kind of the leader and the captains of those groups, and are leading the way and are essentially the best indication that collaboration is happening because people are taking ownership of a topic and they're bringing people from across the globe together. So we thank you for doing that. Cheers.
Thanks, Catherine, for the great introduction, and also thanks again for the great collaboration for all these events that we have been able to host here at Factory. So now you know everything about this space, its history, and you also got a bit of a glimpse about Berlin. And the rest of the afternoon is now focused on ecosystem exchange. So the first part is going to be about Germany and Berlin with BerChain, EWF, and Berlin Partner. The second part is going to be about the Dutch blockchain ecosystem with Blockchain Netherlands and Odyssey. And the last part to close is about the German blockchain strategy. We will have a speaker from the ministry who worked on this strategy. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce the next speaker, which is myself. So my name is Ricardo Garcia, and I'm the vice president at BerChain. Apart from being active at BerChain, I work for a company called ScanTrust, which is a blockchain startup in the supply chain space. So what is BerChain and how did it all start? In 2018, several people in the blockchain cosmos started naming Berlin as the blockchain capital of the world. This is a quote from Joseph Lubin, for example, who points out Berlin as the blockchain capital of the world and as one of the most important places. And indeed, Berlin has an extremely active blockchain ecosystem. So we are continuously tracking the players that are active here with a list that you can see on our webpage, and we count around 200 companies that today are active in the blockchain ecosystem, which grew from almost 0 to 200 in 2018. There are several globally highly recognized projects that people from the blockchain space might have heard of. Considerable share of the Ethereum development was done in Berlin. Projects like Polkadot, Cosmos, Ocean Protocol, IOTA, Lisk, Eternity, all have a lot of activity here in Berlin on site, which I think is also one of the unique aspects of the Berlin ecosystem, that you will encounter people who are working with blockchain development on a daily basis if you go to events in Berlin. So it's not only about developing concepts and ideas, but actually also implementing them. Apart from that, I think Berlin grew to being a leading hub for blockchain, also because there is a history of startups in Berlin, and Ingo from Berlin Partner will dive into this. So we have an existing infrastructure already of corporate accelerators, co-working spaces, investors focused on different areas. So there are generally very favorable conditions for blockchain startups in Berlin. This led to a very thriving and well-developed ecosystem, and here is just one example categorization, how we cluster the different parties in Berlin: blockchain infrastructure, Ethereum focus, fintech, AI and blockchain, impact and blockchain, Internet of Things, identity, enterprise blockchain solutions. And I won't go through this into great level of detail, otherwise we'll be here tomorrow and still discussing and explaining about the great projects. But you will actually have the chance to meet a couple of projects during my presentation today. So while we have this great ecosystem in Berlin, there is still a challenge that we saw 2.5 years ago, which is there are all these stakeholders that are doing something with blockchain, like the different startups and projects. There are investors who want to invest in projects. There's corporates who are doing their proof of concepts in their innovation departments. There's politicians who want to know what policies they need to develop to push the blockchain ecosystem, and so on. And all these stakeholders today in Berlin are not really connected to each other. There's like this spaghetti type of connections. Everybody somehow talks to everybody. But there is no neutral body that is connecting all these players and promoting the ecosystem. And that's the mission that we have set ourselves for BerChain. So connecting and promoting the Berlin blockchain community inside and outside the blockchain ecosystem to promote Berlin as a global blockchain capital. So we see ourselves as this neutral, non-profit connecting layer between all the different stakeholders. We have set ourselves 3 objectives: connecting the community in Berlin itself. This is already organically happening, but we believe that there is still room for more. Connecting external stakeholders with the community, and promoting Berlin as a global blockchain hub. So focused on these three pillars, we added another important objective that developed along our journey, which is connecting the Berlin community also nationally and internationally, inside Germany and outside of Germany. And this is exactly what we are doing today by inviting our friends from the Netherlands here to create connections from Berlin to other countries. So about BerChain as an organization, it started out as a small non-profit and community-driven initiative already in 2017. Originally, Silvan, who introduced us in the beginning, started with a Slack channel, nothing more than that, but it grew very quickly into something much bigger. So almost a bit more than 1 year ago, we founded BerChain formally as an association. So you see the date here, 25th of January. So we celebrated our 1 year anniversary proudly last Saturday. It started out with 10 founding members from the Berlin blockchain community and grew to many more today. Our activities can be grouped into 4 clusters: large networking events, what we're doing today, smaller activities like workshops and roundtables in a more curated setting, working groups around specific topics, and services, which we generically describe as marketing services for our members, services for the Berlin blockchain ecosystem, such as an overview of all the startups that are active here, and more. Some example activities. Exactly 1 year ago, we did the same event we're doing today at the BerChain New Year's reception. It was only an evening program at that time, so it grew considerably in 1 year, looking at where we are now. So 1 year ago, we had State Secretary Knops from the Netherlands coming to Berlin to talk about blockchain. We had Bruce Pon, the CEO of Ocean Protocol, Sabine Smentek, the State Secretary for Digitization of Berlin. So that's one example of our networking events. Another example of a larger event that we organized was a Facebook Libra public debate. So we organized a large open debate when the Facebook announcement came out, just to stimulate the community in Berlin to connect together. And similar to that, we're trying to organize different types of activities that connect the stakeholders here in Berlin. Today we have 21 organizational members. You might recognize some of the logos that are on there. They're from different backgrounds, so corporates, startups, protocols, legal companies, investors, and so on. And we just added 4 new members, Ubirch, Connect Global, and Blue Swan. And we have 4 of these members here with us today who will present to you what they are doing in a short presentation and why Berlin is so important for them. With that, my time is up, and I would like to call Gerhard Hoff on stage for an introduction to Connect Global. Yes, it's there on the screen. So, where is the microphone?
Hello? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Gerald Hoff. Thank you, Ricardo, for this warm introduction. So it's my pleasure to tell you 2 minutes what we are doing at Connect Global. So Connect Global is an ecosystem that helps to bring the different stakeholders together, especially governmental institutions, corporates, and stakeholders from the blockchain industry. And there is a huge lack of knowledge on how to properly implement blockchain applications. And I had last year the pleasure to work for an Estonian startup. They wanted to enter the German market with an interesting technology. And they mentioned to me, Gerald, we needed 2 hours, 750 euros, and an ID card to have a company ready to go into business. Yeah, I established a company last year, and it took 3 months, a couple of more euros to be ready to have a company. Yeah, so there might be tons of use cases, especially in terms of e-government. Be ready, perhaps with 50 or 60% of our goals, which we want to achieve, because in 2023 we want to have ready all the public service. First of all, we want to figure out, are the startups ready for an implementation? Are they ready for the market to sell to corporates, to sell to governmental institutions? Second, we want to figure out, in which status are the the so-called, let me call them customers, the governmental institutions, the corporates, the medium-sized companies. And for this, what we will do is basically, we want to prepare them for an implementation. And what we have to do for that is most important. We have to do kind of friendly customer interviews. We have to figure out what are the problems, what might be possible solutions, and what can be the real values out of the solutions. Because at least at the end of the day, blockchain is a technology and not a solution itself. And what we want to help to figure out for both parties is to figure out where is the value of the solution when we implement it. Thank you.
You can leave it with me. All right, thanks a lot for this introduction, Gerald. So the next speaker is Frank Bartels from License Rocks. Welcome on stage. 2.5 minutes, stage is yours.
It's on? Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. 2.5 minutes. Thanks for the joke. So we are from License Rocks and we are working on the license revolution, and I would like to tell you very brief and quick why we are doing this and what does it mean. We're living in times of a global business shift where more and more physical products become digital products. But the problem when you think about licensing is that it's becoming more and more complex, and we have this double spend problem with all the licenses. The question is, how can we overcome these problems, and how can we build a solution that is ready for the future? And we think that when we combine trusted ownership and human and machine readable entitlements, then we overcome the complexity, and we are on the way for new collaborative business models, because we can then have automated trading and we have compliance built on the technology. So everything will change, and that's the reason why we use decentralized technology for this. What does collaboration mean? We believe that the future of all business models will be sustainable when they collaborate with other companies. We had a lot of interesting information from the companies this morning in the panel discussion. That's what we also believe, that when you will have a sustainable business model in the future, then you need to collaborate. But collaboration is also important for us. I just brought 2 examples with me. The first one is Siemens. We are currently working on a proof of concept together with one of the BerChain companies, Quorum Control, Tupelo. Topper, where are you? Over there. So, because we are an application provider, we build blockchain applications, blockchain agnostic, so we need a infrastructure layer for it, and therefore BerChain is the right ecosystem to find this. That's why we did this together with Tupelo. And the second one is, we talked about and heard a lot of, about standards this morning. We had the same idea. That's why we implemented and are working on a standard for software license trading on blockchain. And of course, we can't do this by our own. We also did this with Tupelo and other industry players because we need standards for the future and for blockchain to be ready for the market. So the question is, what is your case? We're open to any discussions. We hope that we see you this evening at the Dutch embassy. So reach out to Daud, my co-founder, or me, and then maybe we can collaborate and have a talk, and maybe we can substitute the tea and have a beer instead of that. So thank you very much.
Clicker. All right, Frank, thanks a lot for this introduction. And talking about infrastructure layer and different blockchain infrastructures, our next project is Eternity, also one of our members who has developed a blockchain infrastructure. So here, without calling on stage, Nikita Fuchs is already here. Take it away.
Hi, thank you very much. Yeah, as introduced, my name is Nikita Fuchs. I have my background originally in the Ethereum community, then was asked to coordinate the engineering of the new Eternity protocol, which we built. The idea was to take existing smart contract platforms as a sort of an MVP and then improving it on various ends, with the result that we implemented a new consensus algorithm that allows transactions to be mined as fast as 3 to 5 seconds, which has high implications on the user experience of your blockchain application, and having a virtual machine that executes smart contracts way more efficient and stores them in like 90% less amount of data, so you don't have a big chunk of blockchain data bloating up on your servers. This advanced virtual machine, can I click? Oh, there you go. Allowed us to implement new native features like a more extensive contract language, built-in oracles that get data from outside, from the outside world into your decentralized smart contract-based applications, and have actual real trustless state channels by which your users of your application can have private and free one-to-one transactions super fast without having to run through the consensus of the mainnet. It's all built on the Erlang language. This is the thing that runs WhatsApp, by the way. So it's highly scalable and reliable on the network layer natively. Yeah, just to help people out adopting the Eternity protocol on their blockchain projects and use cases, we created Eternity Consulting, which you're always free to contact and reach out to help you guys implementing the Eternity protocol into their projects. Providing knowledge and training how to use the development tools which we have in place, and basically how to communicate, interacting with decentralized applications built on Eternity to your user base. And yeah, also of course answer all the technical questions around it. So feel free to reach out. I actually have 1 minute left. Thanks for having me.
Quick and efficient, we like that. And I think the Dutch people also like that. Most efficient people on the planet. All right. So our last presenter in our small pitch session is Ape Unit. And Emil is already here, so I'll let him eagerly join the stage and tell us what Ape Unit is about and does. Take it away.
Hey. I'm Emil, and I'll talk a little bit about Ape Unit. We're a network of developers and designers and strategists. We're organized in different subunits. I'll talk a little bit more about our involvement in blockchain. So these are the units that also work with blockchain technology. I'm leading the Unit 8, and we're very much focused on making this technology more accessible. So we work with different blockchain projects and very much on the accessibility layer, coming a bit from the user experience side originally, but also very, very deep in on tech side involved. Within these efforts over the time, we also saw that we have to add more projects like a learning platform where people can learn, like Decade, and also a consultancy. We're total around 38 people and interested in different fields, and currently also looking for some new ways to collaborate and also organize ourselves. So this is also topics that we are very interested in discussing this today. So how could we work together? So we love when there's kind of a, let's say, complex problem that has some technical depth, and build structures also that live also when we might phase out of the project. So it's more like a task force to tackle a problem and leave the things in a nice shape. So then the project can also work on our own. That's it from my side.
All right, perfect. Thanks for the introduction. So you saw 4 examples now of Berlin-based blockchain companies, infrastructure development, application, and ecosystem connections. So there's a bit of everything in Berlin, and I hope that gives you a bit of a flavor of what we do here. All speakers will still be around, so you can chat them up in the break. So we already heard before from Gerald how complex it is to set up a company here in Berlin or in Germany in general, and that you might need a little bit of help for that. And for this, we have one of our experts from Berlin Partner here today. So I'd like to call Ingo Voges from Berlin Partner on stage. So Berlin Partner is the agency promoting Berlin for new companies that come here, and he can tell you everything about the Berlin startup ecosystem broadly and the offering that Berlin has if you want to settle over to Berlin. Stage is yours.
So thank you. Also warm welcome from Berlin Partner. As Ricardo pointed out, actually I want to give you some further insights. We already heard today some little insights, facts about the Berlin ecosystem, but I want to explain to you a little bit more what Berlin has to offer for you guys if you want to expand here, and also how Berlin Partner is supporting these processes. Okay, so just a small introduction to Berlin Partner. We are the public business promotion agency of Berlin. We have like 4 main tasks. One is to support companies expanding, relocating, founding themselves in Berlin. We support all different sectors. Doesn't matter if it's startup, family business, big corporate. We try to support everybody coming over here. But also we support the Berlin-based companies or the companies who have been over in the town longer to grow more nationally or internationally with different services. We also responsible for cluster activities. So we have an AI cluster, IoT cluster, blockchain cluster, and so on, where we try to bring together the different actors like the corporates, the startups, the R&D institutes, and the city government. And last but not least, we are also doing partly capital marketing at Berlin Partner. So when you walk around in Berlin, you see sometimes slogans like Be Berlin, Freedom Berlin, and so on. So these campaigns are made in-house. All the services, a little bit more facts and figures about the Berlin tech ecosystem. So the core tech ecosystem consists of like around 9,000 companies and around 90,000 people employed in core IT related fields, accelerators. So there would be always some possibility also for you guys or startups to maybe join some of these programs, have collaborations with the bigger corporates. But it's not only the bigger corporates who are coming over here, but also the German Mittelstand, small, medium businesses who can't do their digi projects in their hometowns. You know, like Germany is pretty decentralized, but many companies come to Berlin and they are supported by federal programs to do that. So in one-to-one talks, I can also explain you a little bit more how to join these projects and help corporates to digitalize. So we also have a great R&D scene in Berlin, lots of university-related institutes, but also outside the universities. We have the Fraunhofer Institutes, Heinrich Hertz Institutes, and so on. So now a little bit more focus on the startup ecosystem. As you know, Berlin is ranked over the last couple of years always in these rankings in the top 3 of Europe. It always differs, you know, like what they are actually counting, but we're always in quite a good position. So why is that, and what has Berlin to offer? So Berlin, as Catherine also pointed out, very international, very multicultural, so very open also for newcomers to the city. The scene is pretty diverse. Maybe before, like 5 years ago or whatever, Berlin was more known for e-commerce startups, but it definitely changed, and we are also covering all the hot topics as blockchain and so on.
Also more and more VC money coming to the city, more and more international investors looking at Berlin innovative products, services, and so on. So again, with the newest ranking, Berlin's got again like #1 in Germany, definitely. And also Europe-wise, we're quite in good position. Just some of the recent success cases of investment into Berlin startups. Some of the startups you probably know. Also, the infrastructure is very well developed over here. So we are right now at the factory, one of the hotspots. There are like also a lot of other co-working spaces, smaller, bigger ones. A lot of accelerator, incubator programs, as I mentioned before, and also a lot of new startups coming to Berlin every year. Also the availability of talents. So the universities in Berlin, there are like 3 major universities and lots of specialized universities. So altogether there are around 200,000 students in Berlin, 20,000 students inscribed in IT-related studies. So there's always like well-educated people coming to the job market. But it's not only these talents joining the market, but a lot of freelancers, international freelancers coming to Berlin. To maybe also join your operations. Other big plus point of Berlin is that we have a lot of bigger events you could join. For example, in summer we have the Tech Open Air, big conference for 3 days, which also offers like 150 satellite events all over the city. We have the Startup Night by Deutsche Telekom, but also a lot of smaller events or good meetups you could join. So like every second day in Berlin, you could probably visit a good meetup or go to some pitching event. But last but not least, there also definitely the life quality attracts a lot of people, and maybe for your startup also attracts then new employees from all over the world. So how is Berlin Partner actually supporting all this? These are our core services. So we help with finding office space, we help with recruitment, we help with applying for public funding, we matchmake with the R&D scene and so on. So if you're really interested to expand to Berlin, we can later talk one-to-one. And now I just want to show you some of these examples, what's really good to know, and maybe you can already log on these sites maybe. So we have Talent Berlin, that's a soft landing platform where you find all the information about living and working in Berlin. Also if you have children, like finding kindergarten space, how to get like an internet contract, mobile contract and so on. And it's also linked to our job platform where you can upload your open job profiles for free. We have a agreement with the Foreign Registration Office. There's a task force called Business Immigration Service. So if you want to hire people from outside the EU who should work in Berlin, we speed up the whole process of getting visa and work permits. We give you information and help you with a lot of public funding programs provided by the IBB, that's the Berlin Investment Bank, but also federal programs or EU programs. Just to point out, we are also a member of Enterprise Europe Network. That's like a network of 600 institutes all over Europe. So with that network, we can help you apply for EU calls. So right now there are like 3 blockchain-related calls open. We give you information how to apply for these calls, how to find partners, and sometimes we offer workshops in Berlin to that, or maybe also in Brussels. We are also a founding member of the DE Hub initiative. That's a federal program of choosing excellence centers all over Europe, all over Germany. So Berlin was chosen actually for IoT and FinTech as an excellence center. And there we can offer startups to engage again with corporates, with the R&D scene, have pitching events, also recruit together, get or apply for joint calls for funding and so on. And we also have a greater network that's called Start Alliance. That's a startup exchange program between international hubs. So we actually founded that program. We have New York in there. We have Tel Aviv, Shanghai, Beijing, also in Europe, Paris, London, and so on. Unfortunately, not Amsterdam yet, but maybe they will join as well. And we offer badges in Berlin for these partner cities, so startups can join our programs for 2 weeks. They get free co-working spaces, they get introduction how to enter the market. In the end, they have a pitching event of Berlin corporates and investors, and vice versa. We are sending out our Berlin startups to these partner cities. Sometimes they join some bigger startup events in these in the foreign cities, or have just the normal badges and also get the introduction how to enter the market and so on. And that was my short introduction, how we could support you, a little bit of the info on the ecosystem, and if you have any questions later on, just talk to me in the coffee break. Thank you.
All right, Ingo, thanks for this introduction. So you know everything you need to know now if you want to settle over to Berlin and start a life or a company here. So now we spoke about the big picture, the Berlin blockchain ecosystem, the startup ecosystem, and Berlin as a whole. And before we go into the break and then also shift to the Netherlands, we're going to dive into one specific ecosystem now, namely the energy ecosystem in blockchain that was brought together by the Energy Web Foundation. So I would like to now call Meerim Ruslanova on stage, who will introduce us to the Energy Web Foundation and the work that they have been doing around connecting corporates in energy to the blockchain world. So, if possible, let's continue using that one. All right, stage is yours.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Meerim Ruslanova and I have a pleasure today to present our work and what we do in the energy space. Before we start, I would like to ask how many of you have experience in the energy sector? If you can raise your hands. Oh, a lot of people, that's great. Perfect, so our agenda for today is for you to get to know EWF or Energy Web Foundation and then to deep dive into two specific case studies of blockchain implementation. Number one, tracking renewable energy generation and consumption. And number two is integration of distributed energy resources into the grid. And I'm going to present several pilots that we had from California, from Thailand, Germany, and Austria. All right, so Energy Web Foundation. We are a global nonprofit with a mission to create decentralized digital solutions for the energy sector in light of the low carbon energy transition. So there are two components that make who we are. Number one, technology, and number two, community. So on the technology side, as you can see from the graph here, the bottom layer represents the energy sector assets, so production generation assets. The purple layer is the blockchain, Energy Web Chain, our public Ethereum-based blockchain. The purple layer is software development kits. So it's the software tools that help different market participants to build blockchain-based applications. And the upper layer is the applications themselves. So we are active along the purple and the blue layer. That's where we are aiming to facilitate others to build up upon the technology that we're developing and to mature it across different jurisdictions and markets. The second component of who we are is our community. We have assembled an ecosystem of 100+ organizations from the energy and the blockchain scene, and some of the logos that you see here today. Some of the notable members that we have from Germany, for example, is TWL, EDIS, Zonen, a battery manufacturer. We also have Stedin from the Netherlands. So this community has been actually essential for us to test and develop our tech and for governing our chain, the Energy Web Chain. So let's move to the deep dives that I promised to you, the tracking of renewable energy certificates and DER integration. Let's start off with the first one. That toolkit is called Energy Web Origin. And if you remember on the map, that's where it stands, on the purple layer. So the idea of Energy Web Origin is quite simple. It's to track your renewable energy generation certify that with the existing regulations and standards, such as guarantees of origin in Europe, renewable energy certificates in the US, or IREX in 25 emerging markets. Match those certificates with the available demand, either for your electricity consumption in the house, in a factory, or for your electric vehicles. And to enable the users of the certificates to redeem them or to claim the environmental impact of that. So the bottom line is to enable procurement of renewables. And why is this important? There are several reasons for this, but the two major ones is regulations. So the state regulations to have certain quotas of renewable energy consumption in the country, or voluntary action, such as the corporate action from companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, committing to sourcing renewable energy. So let's look at a specific example. Our partner, PTT, a local energy company in Thailand, has actually used the technology that we've developed and leveraging the toolkit, Energy Web Origin, to create a digital marketplace for IREX in Thailand. What does that mean? It means that corporate buyers, municipal buyers, international organizations will be actually able to source renewables for their operations in Thailand with compliance with IREX standard. And why is this important? Because we do not want to create a parallel system, a parallel tracking standard. We work with the existing regulations. And the benefits of this marketplace would be better inclusivity, so smaller players can now finally participate, better tracking, higher granularity, optimized and streamlined processes. So now I want to turn our attention to Energy Web Flex. That's another use case or another toolkit for integrating your distributed energy resources or DRs into the grid. So on the map, that's where Flex stands. So the idea of Flex is to enable your DRs, like your PV system or your storage system, to participate in the market, share data with the TSOs and DSOs, get you some financial benefits, and also elevate the congestion costs. Today, the DER integration is unfortunately at its infancy, like we saw examples from California and Germany. So the reason for Flex and the potential benefits are huge. So I want to present to you a pilot that we conducted last year together with the German TSO EDIS and Sonnen, a battery company. So the idea was EDIS has wind and solar assets in Brandenburg that create electricity. A certain portion of the electricity will go to the grid. Another portion of the electricity will be accessed, so EDIS will have to do something with that. So in order not to waste the electricity or curtail these assets, EDIS will actually request flexibility service from Sonnen's residential batteries. So there are 17 residential batteries that participated in this pilot. Those batteries would store the excess electricity that would be further used by the households for a fee. So Sonnen would charge a fee to EDIS. The benefits are for EDIS, better balancing of the grid, for Sonnen, additional revenues, for households using renewable energy from wind and solar. Now, this is the high-level picture, and that's all happens, the settlement all happens on Energy Web Chain with the help of the stable cryptocurrency DAI. Now, how does it actually happen step by step? So, this is the forecast of EDIS of the grid, and that's how EDIS actually knows when and how much flexibility service it needs from this battery storage. So this graph is quite complex, but the horizontal line is where the grid should be. The blue line is what happens if EDIS does not do anything with the grid, with its assets. The red line, actually what happens, and the yellow box is the time frame when EDIS needs this flexibility services. So EDIS looks at this graph and says, okay, so in the 15-minute interval, we need 30 megawatt storage capacity. EDIS posts this on the user interface on this portal. So in this case, for 30 megawatt for 15 minutes. And And on the other side of the equation, Zonen has an automated system that listens to blockchain and looks for attractive offers. So when Zonen sees this offer automatically, then they will bid. They will bid to have this flexibility solution. And here where the matching happens. So ideally the matching should happen without human intervention. It should happen automatically. However, for the pilot purposes, Edis and Zonen did it manually. So Edis accepted the bid and accepted the flexibility of the batteries. So in this image, you see the battery by Zonen blinking, meaning that the activation happened. And so now let's look at the grid. So the purple square is what should ideally have happened with the grid, so what Edis would have liked. And the blue line shows what happened with the help of Zonen's battery. So it's very close to the ideal case scenario. And here the benefits are, as I mentioned, it decreased congestion costs, increased revenues for Zonen, and households using renewable energy. Another example of a pilot that we have just concluded was with Austrian Power Grid. The idea is very similar to what we have with Edis and Zonen, so I welcome you to check out the press release that just came out. All right, so after learning those two use cases, how can that be actually replicated in the Netherlands? Well, actually quite simply, because the Netherlands has the geo markets and is trying to encourage more renewable energy facilitation in the country. So the Origin toolkit can be used both for the geo markets and for EV charging. So I recently found out that 15% of public buses in the Netherlands are already electric. And with the help of Origin, we can actually automate EV charging with the help of renewable energy. So that way, the environmental benefits of this e-buses actually increases, as opposed to charging them with the usual grid mix. Another application possibility is for DER integration, just like we did with Edis in Germany and in Austria with APG. So, how can you engage? Whether you're a regulator, a market participant, like a utility, a DSO or a TSO, an energy company or EV company, a startup or a corporate, we welcome you to connect with us, talk with us about your use case, test with us different applications, create business offers that are not in the market, and have the technology grow and mature. And I think we have 9 more minutes. So if there are any specific questions, I'm very happy to discuss them here on the stage. Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Is the gentleman here?
Just a second, I'll get one of the mics.
When you talk about flexibility, is this the official reserve power market that you are active in?
Hear me now? Yeah. So far it was the AFR markets that we were looking at. The POC with Edis and Zonen was actually just a pilot. So was the case with APG. So that means that there were no commercial transactions and there was no actual market participation.
How do you plan to reconcile the simultaneous use of the battery for flexibility and the use by the customers in the household?
When you say reconcile, could you elaborate a little bit?
I mean, you have like one grid meter and you have basically the flexibility running on it at the same time as customers use it.
Right. That's a technical question that I probably won't be able to answer you, but I'm happy to divert my technical product owner to answer this question. However, there's one thing maybe that to mention for registering the devices, so such as a storage system on the blockchain, there's a bunch of solutions that are being implemented, and one of them is using different IoT devices to make sure that you track power getting into the battery for the flexibility services versus customer actually giving the power back to the grid. The second scenario we haven't actually tested yet.
Thank you.
Did you use an Energy Web Foundation blockchain capable or blockchain available smart meters?
No, but we have a toolkit that I haven't mentioned here called Link that is working towards connecting different types of assets, including the smart meters, to the blockchain. So the team is developing a protocol, an open source protocol, and we have had different discussions with OEMs onto how to actually make smart meters blockchain ready. Our idea is to ensure that it's open source so that you can just take the standard way and make sure that you can connect the smart meters. So that's our idea, but we haven't rolled out the actual smart meters.
Okay.
Sorry, just an exemplary company that we worked with is Verve. So they have this configuration box that makes it easy to connect your PV panel onto the blockchain.
So first of all, thank you for excellent talk, very interesting. Does your model also need some kind of business model baked in? So is there a model, maybe in the protocol level or maybe a token?
Definitely. Well, as I mentioned in the beginning, we are not app owners. So we provide the base infrastructure, right, for building the apps. The app owners will be responsible for defining their business model, right? So in the case of the flexibility POC in Austria, APG would be an app owner where it would define the business model. But that's an excellent question, and the business model would probably depend on a different country and a different use case. So for example, for registering settlement and payment for the battery service, you'll have to really think how to do it because the transaction is so marginal. It's so small for every day that you probably have to think how you would incentivize your customer to provide that flexibility service to you and how you would settle that with the customer. Would you deduct that from the utility bill? Would you give a discount, etc.? Yeah. We have a question in the back. Yes?
It's for the live stream. It's a live stream. It's really bad with mics.
My question is like, why do you need to use a blockchain for this?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah. What's the important thing? Like, you should be using blockchain for this.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So let me give you just a background story of Energy Web Foundation. I know you didn't ask for it, but let me just give you the background story. When Energy Web Foundation was created, there was actually an analysis of 200 use cases in the energy sector to understand if blockchain will bring additional value. That was in the beginning. And after extensive evaluation and assessment, there was a narrowed down list of the use cases where blockchain appeared to have additional value, especially compared to the conventional software solutions. Yeah. So in this narrowed down list, among other use cases were certificates of origin, DER integration, and peer-to-peer trading. So which is why Energy Web Foundation went with the first one, the certificates of origin. Now, these markets and these tracking systems function okay on their own. We have seen them grow in Europe and the US, and they are working fine. But with the advantages of blockchain, what you can do is you can track on a much higher granularity and with a much higher transparency and with a much higher accuracy your renewable energy generation and your renewable energy consumption. You can also have a common platform for all these different types of stakeholders to operate. Since blockchain is not owned by anyone, it's kind of easier to get all of these different stakeholders work together. And when I say different stakeholders, it's issuing bodies, it's exchange operators, it's brokers, it's buyers, it's sellers, it's regulators, it's certificate standards, etc. So is it possible to have the system with a central software? Probably. Has it been so far worked out? No. Now let's take the other use cases for the DER integration. These devices are very small. Like very small, meaning that you just have your PV system on your rooftop. Those are very small, and a lot of the times the transactions that they will be conducting are very tiny. So blockchain has this great advantage of making every transaction of different size actually financially viable. And it has the ability of making sure that these records are stored in a transparent and immutable way, which is why the DER integration was chosen. Peer-to-peer trading is also an awesome use case where blockchain adds actually obviously a lot of value. We did not go into there because of the regulations. We do not see enough regulatory sandboxes today that can actually allow peer-to-peer. There are excellent companies out there who are doing a lot of work like Power Ledger or LO3, but the scene is much harder than, for example, for certificates. Did I answer your question? Okay. We also don't have to have questions. That just means I did an excellent job. I'm going to tell that myself. Thank you for bearing with me. If I did not make sense and you just didn't want to upset me on stage, you can do that after we're done here. I'll be here for the coffee break and I'll be happy to chat if you have any questions related to our work or unrelated to that. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks a lot for that excellent introduction and for clarifying all these questions, Meerim. So now we have a break. So we're done with the part about the German and Berlin blockchain ecosystem. I hope this gave you a bit of a feeling. And if not, come back to Berlin many times to continue exploring. Not only the Berlin blockchain ecosystem, but there's a lot more to see, just so that I've said it. So we have a break now until 4 p.m. Use it well, because we have to close down when we're done with the event, so at around 5:15, because there's another event coming. That's why we have a break now, so you can network a bit. And important information, so as Silvan mentioned, me and Lydia over there are going to be at the table in the lounge if you want to register for the bus, which will be leaving at 5:30 to go to the embassy. All right, enjoy the break. All right, slowly take a seat again. We are going to continue. I hope you enjoyed your break and had some time to mingle and network, make some new connections between Netherlands and Germany and within Germany and Berlin. So now for the second part, we are going to flip the side and dive a bit more into the Dutch ecosystem. For this, we have Blockchain Netherlands and Odyssey here. And since Rudolf is already very eagerly waiting, I hand over the word directly to him. So Rudolf, take it away. And you need a mic to talk.
Yeah. Cool. Hello, welcome everybody to the Dutch part of this ecosystem exchange. My name is Rudolf van Ee, or Rudolf in German. What I will be discussing today is the Dutch startup ecosystem. So I can give you some numbers about what's going on in Holland. Two of our members, well, there are more members of BCNL Foundation here today, but two of them will take the stage right after me, and that will be Joost van der Plas from Maven 11 and Jeske Ening from Dusk Network. So, first of all, it's great to be here, and thanks a lot for organizing this BerChain. I think it's very valuable that we keep on exchanging ideas and knowledge between certain ecosystems. First, the agenda that I will be discussing today, mostly startups, about our foundation, our members, the ecosystem that we've created. I can share some numbers, and obviously the German-Dutch collaboration. So what is going on in the Netherlands? Since 2016 that we started this initiative, we have counted over 150 startups. Quite a lot died in the meantime, and new ones arose. Last week, or a few weeks ago, we counted how many startups there were in 2019, and around 100 were still active. They are active in certain or different kind of domains, from finance to food. We see a lot, but especially in the educational part that we were discussing here today as well. A lot of new startups have come to the scene to create awareness and stimulate adoption, and that's what we all try to achieve, obviously. From these startups, 32 are member at BCNL. So what is BCNL? We are a community, the community for blockchain startups in the Netherlands. We link the Dutch startups to different kinds of ecosystems, both nationally and internationally, to facilitate collaboration between the stakeholders. And for us, it's really important to set a certain quality standard. So therefore, we work together with a due diligence partner, and every blockchain startup goes through the same process, so we are quite sure that the quality is high. Then our mission and objectives are to put Dutch blockchain startups on the map, basically. So what we try to do is to provide them the right resources, connect them to the right stakeholders and ecosystems so they can thrive. We've identified that most of the startups have the common issues that they obviously have being a startup. They take all the risk being an entrepreneur. But a lack of mutual collaboration is holding us down. So therefore, this 32 startups chose to unite and try to achieve the same goals and are on the same mission. So we want to make the Holland, like Ricardo said as well, a leading hub in the world. So we're not trying to compete, but therefore we are here today to collaborate. We try to demonstrate what Dutch startups can do via various initiatives. So most important, physical meetups, events, obviously the Dutch Blockchain Week, and this year we'll add, well, last year was the first edition, and this year we'll add the Dutch Blockchain Awards. We have social media exposure, and we try to, let's say, keep the market up to date about what is going on in the startup ecosystem. BCNL in numbers, we've organized around 50 events with more than 100 community partners. These partners are active in a lot of various ways, let's say. Our social media exposure is the highest in the Netherlands in terms of blockchain startups. Then last year, these are the numbers of the Dutch Blockchain Week we've organized. It was amazing to see that all these people came together. It was really a voluntary, community-driven event in which 64 speakers presented in 26 events in just 1 week. So the type of stakeholders that we interact with are governments, regulators, but also other networks internationally, other businesses. Very important, investors, incubators and accelerators, and universities, co-working spaces. LISC Center Utrecht is here today, so we're very happy to see them as well. Here's an overview of the types of brands we have collaborated with to make all of this happen. Yeah, you want to take a picture? Yeah, please go ahead. Go for it. Obviously, when we are trying to increase our global footprint, we want to start with our neighbors. And we are very excited to announce that BCNL and BerChain are official partners now. And we love to celebrate that tonight with a drink, so feel free to join. Woo! Then, why we value it so much that we've been invited here is we are neighbor countries with similar mindsets, and we try to achieve similar goals. So, to return the favor, Victoria will dive deeper into that right after our talk. But we'd like to invite you for both Odyssey Connect in 2 weeks, and in June, we would love to see a German delegation move to the Netherlands for the Dutch Blockchain Week, and we've already discussed certain collaborations. So that would be awesome. Now let's move forward quickly to Joost van der Plas from Maven 11.
Yeah, all right. Thank you, Rudolf, and thanks for being here. Let me get to the first slide. Yeah. So, wow. Oh, that's not the color of our logo, by the way. It should be some kind of orange. So my name is Joost, and I'm one of the founders of Maven 11 Capital. And Maven 11 is a venture capital investment firm based in Amsterdam, and we invest solely in blockchain initiatives. We've been doing this since 2015, so have seen the whole ecosystem evolving. Yeah, are a proud member of the Dutch BCNL community. I want to talk to you a little bit more about how we look at the Dutch ecosystem and how it's evolving. But before I do that, I want to run you through a couple of slides how we look at the whole blockchain ecosystem as a whole, because it's needed to explain how we look at the ecosystem. Oh well, all colors are mixed up. But I assume you know a lot about blockchain technology. So the way we look at it is as a new way to manage and register ownership and basically everything that is of value today. So we're going to put this in a protocol instead, managing through institutions. And this will lead eventually to what we call a new phase of internet. We call this the internet of value, where the current internet has, created a frictionless manner of exchanging information. Blockchain will, create an internet where we can exchange value much easier. And by doing so, this will lead to a couple of major trends. First of all, there will be a huge migration of the assets we know today. So every asset we know today will be transferred into a digital asset. And that's small today, so there's going to be huge migration. It will also lead to the creation of new financial instruments like Bitcoin, but others may arise. It will lead to a redefined scope of assets, so it won't all be financial anymore. We will see new digital assets arise, for example, around data. So the data you create will be seen as an asset in an internet of value. And this eventually will lead to the disruption of current industries and business models, because if Facebook does not own your data anymore, they might have an issue. So we see blockchain really as a technology that will transform business, economical, and even social structures the coming decade. And it all starts at the beginning. And that means that it starts at the foundational layers of this whole ecosystem. So it starts with protocols, it starts with the infrastructure around these digital assets. And it doesn't even start there, it is already starting. This is happening today. There are multiple unicorns, I'm looking at the slides, they're all mixed up. Multiple unicorns already in these foundational layers, and we believe that more will come, and eventually it will lead to huge investment opportunities also in the upper layer, which is called the application layer. So if you look at our investment thesis, we are really centered around this basic blockchain infrastructure protocols, or the whole infrastructure around these digital assets like custody, like exchanges, and other protocols. So having said that, this is how we operate. We invest early. We hope to support. Sometimes we just sit back and let other VCs support. So we have this fit for purpose operating model. But now let me tap into how we see the ecosystem in the Netherlands evolving. we've been around since 2015 and even longer, a bit more on a personal level. And we really have seen the whole ecosystem in general evolve from, well, you know, let's say a crypto, slightly anarchistic community to a community with more actors and people from different backgrounds involved. And, you know, initiatives like BCNL really helps to, you know, create this more mature environment for entrepreneurs to get there. So we really cheer at you know, at all these initiatives. And this will be evolving even further. You know, we have, of course, the big hackathon later on this year, but we also see a lot of educational programs arising. We see incubator programs, you know, getting filled with new startups. So that's really going the right direction. What's going into a, well, I won't say not right direction, but might be creating some tension is the regulatory component of it. Especially if you look at this whole digital infrastructure, you know, platforms. With the current laws, you know, at the table, some of them might be, you know, closed down, and we already see some of the, you know, successful companies in that domain fleeing the country. So regulatory is evolving, but it will, you know, create some tension with other stakeholders in there. If we look from the angle, you know, the people investing in this space. Well, I would say we're quite alone now. We have a couple of crypto funds in the Netherlands, but they are not really investing early stage in new initiatives. And we have maybe some, you know, entrepreneurial investors that like this space. But we would really like to see more venture capital firms, you know, specializing in this domain, because that's what's needed for the ecosystem. But it's also needed, you know, to our own clients, which are investors in our fund, which, you know, need to be educated by more people than only this crazy guy. And then finally, if we look at the startups in the Netherlands, there we see, and I think this is globally, we see a huge step up in quality, where a couple of years ago we were mainly talking to students, you know, just from university, with a great plan, trying to conquer the world. But eventually they did not make it happen. And nowadays we see industry veterans, people with track records in industry, you know, picking up this new technology and trying to disrupt the industry they know so well. So that's very good. One challenge might be for the Netherlands, but maybe also the community in Berlin or in Germany, is that the mindset we need to build these protocols, which are foundational for the, you know, new web era, that's a global game, you know, and it's you really have to, you know, you might be local, but think and act globally, and that's something that is pretty well done by, you know, companies from the United States, but it's hard for. And I think we're cultural defined there. It's a challenge for most of the entrepreneurs to think on that level. That's also the reason why we only have invested in one company in the Netherlands. The rest is all US or even Asia or UK. And that company, you might guess, is Dusk, who's also here to explain a bit more. So I did not put your quote on there because I think you're better off telling how good we are. Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for the kind words, and hello everybody. My name is Jeske from Dusk Network, and within Dusk I'm responsible also for partners and network, which actually means that I'm also endorsing Rudolf and also helping out in the Dutch ecosystem. Also part of the Two Tokens initiative, which also drives token financing in the Netherlands. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Dusk and from a protocol point of view, as Joost briefly described. So what is Dusk? Dusk Network is a protocol, blockchain protocol, especially built for the financial sector. And I have very much help from the OECD, which is the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. They did so kindly make a report for us, I would say, but about the implications of financial markets, and especially about tokenization of assets. So they actually said that to have a meaningful or success actually in the financial sector, technology needs to have three things. One of them is a business rationale. Is there a solid business rationale for the use of DLT? Meaning, is it more efficient? Is it transparent? Technical feasibility. Does DLT provide important advantages when compared to current technology? Meaning scalability, interoperability, privacy, but also instant settlement. Economic sense. Is there a proven and measurable economic rationale for the use of DLT? Meaning, is it faster, cheaper, better for the economic value? So all these three conditions need to be satisfied for the transition to DLT in the financial sector to be meaningful. So if you then look at the technical feasibility, meaning again, interoperability, interoperability, privacy, scalability, and also settlement finality. This is exactly what Dusk does. So that means it's very easy for me to explain. So Dusk is a protocol level, meaning an open source permissionless network. We do have our own consensus mechanism, which is called SBA, Segregated Byzantine Agreement, or easily said actually, private proof of stake. And then as a third level, we have a zero knowledge VM, which makes it possible to do zero knowledge smart contracts. So if I do like an overview of that, that Dusk Network is a permissionless blockchain platform that enables businesses to transact directly, so instant, and strict privacy using smart contracts, reducing therefore the transaction and record keeping costs and streamlining business operations. Well, I think that the last part is indeed summarized in that again. Reduce intermediation by automation, as we replace intermediary trust from the intermediary to the protocol. We combine permissionless blockchain with strict privacy and adhere to compliancy. This means that we're actually combining privacy and compliance directly on-chain, on protocol level, not on application level. There's no need for high investment costs associated with private permissionless blockchains. Well, if I summarize that, then in summary, that makes it very easy. Dusk is the perfect fit for digital assets and securities. And that's it for now for the big overview. And if you have any questions, just feel free to ask either now or in the drinks of tonight, actually. Thank you. Do I give it to you? Or do I give it to somebody else?
No, can give it with me. All right, so thanks everybody for this introduction into the Dutch blockchain ecosystem. So now we've set the context on what Blockchain Netherlands is doing. We've seen two great examples of companies from the Netherlands. And now we'll move over to another ecosystem-focused company from the Netherlands that has been doing a lot of important work to connect not only the Dutch ecosystem, but the global ecosystem around the topic of blockchain and innovation. So with that, I would like to call Victoria Oes, Innovation Lead at Odyssey, on stage to tell us about what Odyssey is all about. And while you climb the stage, I'm going to get your presentation ready in a second.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you, Ricardo. I would like for the upcoming 15 minutes to actually take you on an Odyssey. So, who knows what device is this? Come on. Yes. And what does it do? Exactly. So in April 3rd to 5th, 2,000 people will actually travel to the future to solve complex challenges. In order for me to give you a context of what you can expect, from it and how it would look like, I would like to transpose you towards the future in 2 months from now. Yes? Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to discover the future by building it. Sequence initiated. your team is winning at the 2020 Odyssey Hackathon. With your ideas, your hacks, and your prototypes, working with corporates, governments, and regulators. Breaking the loops, connecting the dots and creating new space. A truly open, public space where all stakeholders collaborate to transform the way we do business, organize society, and deal with the environment. You have discovered the future by building it together. You are now part of an evolving ecosystem that will make it so.
Make it so, Mr. LaForge.
Make it so.
All the bullshit gets taken aside. So the benefit of doing it fast is also that you need to focus. So first you diverge with all your ideas, but because of the time limit, you have to bring it really back into this 48 hours. Say, okay, we won't do this, not this. This is it. This is the core. This is what it is about. Very powerful, extremely powerful.
You name it, there's like the expertise is here. And so it's really nice to have people coming up to the table and not just talking to them, but actually helping us with our project.
We're building a disaster recovery system, which essentially is a backup form of internet that activates when all other systems go down.
Not many things can surprise you anymore, in a way. But coming here, there is so much freshness and energy, and that, I mean, energy is the key word everybody is mentioning, but it is really true.
The challenge owners have to think quite thoroughly about what the problem is they actually want to put to the teams. And that helps because they have to think about why is this such a hard problem? Why do we want it solved? Why do we need blockchain for this and stuff? And then it kind of forcing them to think about it also is better for the teams because they can be much more focused in their solutions.
These incredibly complex challenges can't be solved by one organization or even an entire industry or nation. These challenges can't be solved by just throwing money at them. These challenges require mass collaboration at an ecosystem level, where anyone is enabled to become part of the solution. (2020) April 3rd to April 5th. 2,000 participants from all over the world. The 4th edition of the Odyssey Hackathon, Groningen, the Netherlands. Collaborate on 20 complex challenges. 100 selected teams will collaborate with the challenge partners, their stakeholders, and hundreds of experts. The best ones won't just get a launching client, but gain a network of clients that want to actually work with you. Oh, and there's 200,000 euros in cash rewards.
Sure, you can win cash rewards, but the real goal is to create real pilots with the best teams.
Are you ready for your next Odyssey? Team applications are open from January 20th until February 24th. Start your journey on odyssey.org.
Well, this amazing program starts actually in September. So we are currently in the middle of the Open Innovation Program. And every September we select 20 challenges. This year we actually selected 21 that we believe that would shape the 21st century. These are shared problems. These are problems that influence everyone, and not only one single equity organization can actually solve them. This is not Dutch problems or German problems. These are borderless. They require mass collaboration in order to solve them. That's why we look for protocol solutions that would enable anyone or anything to contribute to or to benefit from. We look for solutions that do not benefit only an organization or an industry. We want to unlock the ecosystem economy. That's why we feel very humbled by the beautiful initiative of BerChain to actually give us the opportunity to share what we are trying to achieve with the hope that we can actually activate the local Berlin community to join us on our mission. Because we believe that only together we can create our next operating system for society. We already had a couple of connections with the Berlin ecosystem with a great track record. Please meet the 4 teams of last year, Berlin teams that actually were winners of their challenges. So you can see a couple of familiar faces in the pictures. We also, for this year, we lined up a couple of Berlin partners that are here, you know, to actually to help you out even after the hackathon to enlarge, you know, your solution or your ecosystem towards their own stakeholders that are actually localized here or in Netherlands or wherever their extra headquarters are. One thing that we changed from last year, and maybe, you know, for the people that actually been there, this year we kicked off every single challenge with an ecosystem. And what do we mean by an ecosystem? So look at this. This is the KLM Cargo stakeholder meeting where we actually aligned upon what problem needs to be solved. During the morning session, we touched pointed that, okay, the problem is not within the technology, correct? Because coding is easy, but it's about the people behind it and aligning interests. This is our way to actually, since September, so the hackathon is in April, correct? Since September, we are working together with ecosystem of stakeholders around the challenge that are willing to, or like they have a common mission that they work towards throughout the entire year, because the Odyssey program actually ends in June. Can you help me? Yes. So after we define the challenges and we actually transfer the right knowledge towards potential teams, we're going to meet in Groningen. You might think that it's far away, but it's only like 5 hours by train. So where we're actually going to co-create solutions together with the stakeholders, together with the challenge leads. We expect around 250 to 300 Jedi. Jedis are the masters of wisdom. You have all the necessary ingredients for your success. So, so that afterwards you can, again? Okay, yes. So that afterwards you can actually land a pilot. So one of the great examples from last year was actually Space for Good. Space for Good was not the team that won the challenge. But eventually in the talks after the hackathon, they managed to score a multi-stakeholder pilot with Willis Smits over here, who's actually trying to save the orangutans in Borneo. If it's possible to launch a multi-stakeholder pilot in Borneo, I'm sure we can do it here as well, right? So let's look very quickly into what you can expect, you know, from the team's life cycle. So we like preparation, that's for sure. That's why we have next week Odyssey Connect, where we're going to provide for 2 days intense deep dives into. The first day is all about the what needs to be solved, and the second day is about the how. So what are the right building blocks that you could use in order to solve the challenges? Of course, you have to apply, then you get a curation call, by the way. Everybody is curated. Later on in March, April, before the hackathon, we actually organized 2 things. Number 1 is an online workshop with the 5 teams per challenge and the challenge lead, which is a great way to do a knowledge exchange and double checking, you know, what you're trying to build with the challenge lead, so you feel more prepared towards the hackathon, as well as the Getting Ready conference, which always feels like a huge reunion. And of course, in April 3rd to 5th, is the hackathon itself, the co-creation, the big moment, the eureka moment, let's put it this way. And eventually, from April to June, would be your moment to shine, to actually show potential in a pilot from your solution. So switching from a prototype towards a real product. We have in-house a bunch of tracks and challenges that you can choose from for all the tastes and flavors. I wish I had more time to actually go in each of them, but I would like to encourage you to go to odyssey.org and look into all the challenges. We do have a couple of challenge leads. I would like to point out, Michiel, can you, yes. So Michiel is responsible for the fossil-free future. Nick, can I have, yes. So there is Nick, who is in charge of the opening up real estate. Yes. So if you have any questions related to those or you want to connect with them, please feel free after after this presentation, basically. So yes, put it in your calendars with Fred, February 24th. Applications close. I really do hope to see this mass enablement and mass collaboration happening not only from Groningen side, but also, you know, from the Berlin side. Don't hesitate to ping me whenever you have a doubt, which challenge you want to choose, or any other questions that you might have. Here is my email address. In order to make a very smooth transition into a potential challenge that you can have during the hackathon, I would like to invite on stage Gerard, who is actually from the Ministry of Economic Affairs, that is a part as well of the Dutch Blockchain Coalition. Dutch Blockchain Coalition, together with the Ministry of Interior Affairs, they are working together in defining the self-sovereign identity. And I would like you to hear it from his own words, not mine. Like, why do they do it? Why do they think it's important? Why now?
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Okay, thank you very much, Victoria. Before you leave, do you have a logistical problem when all startups in Berlin apply for the hackathon, which means there would come hundreds of young people in your direction?
There are no problems, only challenges, and we always look for...
Okay, thank you very much. Victoria introduced me already. Peter van Koelen, who would be here, is unfortunately not able to come. I'm his replacement. I'm not a member of the Blockchain Coalition, but we are co-founder from the coalition in the Netherlands, and I know them quite exactly what they do. I will tell you something about the Dutch Blockchain Coalition as one of the members in the complete Netherlands blockchain ecosystem. We call it the coalition, but the former speakers showed that the ecosystem is much more than only the Dutch Blockchain Coalition. And I have to make one statement before I start explaining a little bit more about my slides. We mentioned a few times that the Netherlands is probably forerunner in the world on blockchain. I have to apologize for that. I think you're not. For one reason, the Netherlands has a good and functioning ecosystem, and the things the Odyssey project is doing is really from a worldwide importance. But, for example, in the area of tokenization, the Dutch government is completely inert. Nothing happens in Holland. So you can't be a front runner with these assets. The Dutch Blockchain Coalition, we started in 2017. Here you see all these people, and what's very important in this coalition is that we from the ministry have the profound meaning that we can't provoke innovations by ourselves, by a government. You need to connect the business people, entrepreneurs, with the science organizations and the government to work in this golden triangle on solutions, identify problems, and try to make a step forward. We do this for blockchain, but we do this also for artificial intelligence, the use of big data, cybersecurity. We try to shape this golden triangle between entrepreneurs, science institutions, and the governance. And a mixture of these peoples you see over here. The goal from the blockchain coalition is to create conditions for blockchain applications, also work on the conditions in where this can flower. And then you see the two, am I able to come back? Yeah. Two state secretaries from my ministry, Economic Affairs, and from the Interior. You saw him on a former slide at the hackathon. And our ambassador, they try to bring blockchain further and support it. Oh, but this is okay. Yeah. The working of the blockchain coalition has 3 lines. You see them here. Working on the use cases. That's the most visible part. The most important one is self-sovereign identity. That's a big struggle to come forward in this area. We all have the meaning that self-sovereign identity is in fact the most important one to come forward. Self-sovereign identity, you need also object IDs for it to make things work. Everyone, also companies and the government, could use a self-sovereign identity when it would be there, but it's very hard to come so far. Code is not a problem. Victoria told it. The problem is how can we organize privacy in this area? How can we organize that all state registrations connect with this blockchain solution? Very lot of problems. It is one of the bigger challenges in the 2020 Odyssey hackathon, which is called Polaris. I did not hear the word. Or? Did I miss it? Yes, Polaris. It's called Polaris. Yeah. Self-sovereign identity will be a big track or challenge, you call it, in the blockchain hackathon. 4, or in fact now 6 other use cases. I will tell a little bit more on the next slide. We have working groups in the legal area and also the human capital agenda. They were quite successful, and for example, we produced some very good studies on the use of smart contracts. Under what conditions can you use smart contracts? In the area of the human capital agenda, or the blockchain coalition produces a course for teachers, so teach the teachers, and they also started with a very interesting blockchain course for everyone in the world, blockchain for everyone. You can find it on the website of the Dutch Blockchain Coalition. You can also become a certificate when you run through the blockchain course. That's more in the conditions which have to be fulfilled before you can make next step in blockchain. The human capital agenda is what I already mentioned. Then a little bit more on the 6 use cases. All use cases are in the area of public services. Everywhere you need a state registry. Self-sovereign identities, I mentioned it already. There is a logistic track also. We try to to build a blockchain for sea transport. Maybe try to do it for the harbor of port of Rotterdam in connection to the port of Singapore. But it's very difficult to connect the so-called electronic bill of lading with the digital systems of, for example, from the customs organization. Code is not the problem. The problem is how do you organize, how do you govern these use cases. Educational certificates is the next one. Idea is that you can verify all over Europe that you have a diploma or you have a certificate. That's interesting also because it's adopted by the European Commission. We work together in the European Blockchain Platform, or partnership, sorry, the European Blockchain Partnership on this use case. Pensions. In Holland, everyone has a good, or most people have a good pension, private organized. And you can use blockchain for transferring the value that is in your pension scheme. It's almost live. So that's the use case that is almost ready. Compliance by design has to do with the validating the original state of documents. It's a thing from the Ministry of Finance. And mortgages, there's also the question, how can we use blockchain in the process of applying for a mortgage? So banks are involved, the notary, and again, the state registers of people, of property, etc. Complicated to put things together. Lessons learned. There are a few lessons, but there are more things to say about it. My opinion is that we discovered that there is no one-size-fits-all solution for blockchain. Every application needs a very elaborated description of the governance, of the privacy issues, etc., etc., etc. You can't take code and say, "Hop, we have a blockchain." No, things like governance is very important, and I think it's evolving to a more important theme that needs to be elaborated. In Holland, Olivier Rikke is doing very good work on it. That's one thing. This morning we heard Ingo Voges making a good statement. Lessons learned, blockchain is not a solution in itself. Start with the problem, and blockchain is a possible solution. Don't walk the other way around. The biggest challenge is the step from the use case, from the POC or from the pilot to the scale-up phase. In communities in the Netherlands, there started more than 100 pilots. Only a few are made a certain size, and one of these 100 pilots is being adopted by a very small community in the Zuidhoorn, the north of Holland, where it's an application for about 100 families who can work with blockchain for social support for poor children. So we start with very big ambitions, and we end with a small community in the north of Holland with 100 families taking part. Good. That is what I would say. These are the partners. For all, it are the bigger companies. The Dutch Blockchain Coalition is not focused, or was not focused. They tried to refine it or realign it. Was not focused on startups, and the other examples that you saw have much more focus on the startup communities. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot to Victoria and Gerard for this comprehensive introduction into the Odyssey world and the Dutch Blockchain Coalition. So this was it from the Dutch side of things. Now to zoom out and conclude this event, we have one more speaker from the German Ministry of Economics. This is the ministry that was involved in shaping the German blockchain strategy that was published last year in fall, and is an extremely important pillar for collaboration between Germany and other countries. So this has been a big step forward that has been well received by the community, and we have Ms. Zara Basic here today with us from the ministry. So while I put the presentation back up, I would kindly ask her on stage. Stage is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the very kind words. We're very happy that the strategy was well received. We have noticed this also in the press when it was released in September, actually. I would like to give you a small overview of the strategy. Actually, now it's almost half a year old, so we are already in the implementation process, and at the end I will also talk about a few initiatives that are going to be started and that have started already. So how was the process in elaborating the strategy? I will just quickly start with that. It was agreed in the coalition agreement of 2018 between the ruling parties that the blockchain strategy should be put forward by the German government. And actually, my ministry, the Ministry for Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, already had conducted 2 workshops with external stakeholders on blockchain and was already observing what implications the technology had for the economy and what implications that had for the work of our ministry and how we should, and the work of the government in total, and how we should possibly react to that. So we had some kind of knowledge before starting the work on the strategy, actually. And then it was agreed that we would do the strategy together with the Ministry for Finance, which makes sense because finance is an essential theme in blockchain, as you all know. And as we wanted to gather more knowledge and wanted to involve stakeholders more in drafting the strategy, we started a quite extensive online consultation, which we put online in spring last year for 6 weeks. And actually we had 160 participants in the online consultation, which was for us quite interesting because we thought it was a lot of participants. And actually we have published also the statements that we have received. So we put forward a lot of questions, actually. I think it was a quite extensive consultation. So we had questions on the different sectors from where the blockchain technology could be applied. We had questions on the technical perspective and limitations that are there, on the legal perspective, or the legal challenges that blockchain technology has, and on the ecological challenges as well. And so we had 1,000 pages actually as answers that we had to evaluate them and had to see what kind of proposals were being made and what kind of proposals the government could also put forward coming from these proposals. So what kind of measures we really could put forward and what measures already exist in different ministries, because some ministries were already active in the area of blockchain. So in the process of doing that, we drafted a strategy, which then was approved by September 18th. So what are the goals, actually, the underlying goals of the blockchain strategy? Our goal is to use the opportunities in blockchain technology, and as was mentioned before, we do not have the goal to use blockchain everywhere. Not to say blockchain is the solution for everything, but use the opportunities that technology has and mobilize its potential for digital transformation. Because actually we observe that a lot of processes where blockchain technology is thought of or is being thought of in principle are also processes that need maybe digitization as a whole, and maybe at the end the solution may not be blockchain, but the whole process of digitization of a certain process was started. So we see there's a huge potential, and we want to mobilize that with our measures. For sure, we also want to maintain and expand the German blockchain ecosystem, which is a quite well-known and famous and good ecosystem. And we also think that the diffusion of information and knowledge on a blockchain technology is an important factor. So for achieving these goals, we have first put 10 principles. We've laid out 10 principles which guide our actions regarding blockchain technology. So we have some specific measures, which I will talk about later, but we also have 10 principles, which are kind of our guidelines when we look at the blockchain technology. So the first principle is that we want to advance innovations, especially in the blockchain area, but also in other technologies, as I mentioned before. But we want that the innovations in blockchain technology may be used as other technologies can be used as well. We want to give an impetus to investment by making clear and reliable framework conditions. We want to guarantee stability, especially also in the financial sector. We want to strengthen sustainability at the same time, so where there are some limitations regarding the sustainability of a technology, maybe we want to assess if that's really the technology we want to strengthen. At the same time, we want to make fair competition possible, which means that we want to make fair competition between blockchain technology and also other technologies possible. So we, as I said before, we don't say blockchain is the solution for all things, but it also may be other solutions. But if blockchain technology is the solution that wants to be used by a business or by a person, then we want to have the conditions that the technology may be used. So we're putting away the obstacles that may exist, if it's possible. We also want to deep the digital single market, and that we do with the initiative that you also mentioned before. So we are members of the European Blockchain Partnership. We're very actively engaged in building now the a European blockchain services infrastructure, as it is called, and very happy to be a part of that and to have very high interest from the German ecosystem in being part of this European initiative. And we want to expand international collaboration, or we are expanding it actually. We are integrating stakeholders with our measures, so we are very happy to have an open dialogue with stakeholders from all different areas, from science, research, and business communities. At the same time, we also want to guarantee IT security and data protection. You see that there's potentials in the technology, but also limitations. So we want to look at both sides. And for sure, we want to make provisions for adaptation, because this is one strategy which was drafted and approved now half a year ago. And we know the technology is fast advancing, and there might be also necessities to adapt it. So what are exactly the measures we have put forward? So we have clustered our measures in 5 areas of action. The first area of action is blockchain in the finance sector, where we have some measures. Especially I want to highlight the measure that we will put forward a law this year, where we will allow securities to only be digital and not have a written form with them necessarily attached, which is how the process has to be now. So we very much look forward into this, as I said before, into having a more digital process there as well, which will then allow for innovations also with blockchain technology. The second area of action is advancing projects and regulatory sandboxes. So we have a couple of projects in which our ministry, for example, funds which are projects in the energy sector where there's potential for blockchain technology, especially if we talk about the decentralization of energy consumption and energy production. So blockchain technology has potential to measure and to make the networks of consumers and producers of energy more efficiently, and really make networks where energy can be where energy can flow and the transactions can be directly can flow automatically. Sorry. Yeah, I think this is the glimpse into projects and regulatory sandboxes. We have also some projects with developing countries which are quite interesting. So we have, for example, our GIZ Innovation Lab, which has looked at a lot of blockchain projects and is advancing blockchain projects together with developing countries. The third area of action are clear and reliable framework conditions. We know that this is a limitation, that actors do not know how the framework conditions are, and that framework conditions might have to be adapted regarding this still new technology. So, for example, actually tomorrow we are going to conduct a roundtable on data protection and blockchain, where our aim is to talk about the questions that are in the connection of blockchain technology and data protection. And so we have business community, business people, we have associations, and we have the data protection authorities at one table. And we hope that there might, I don't think that this roundtable will have a solution, so that's not my hope, but I hope that we can search for a deeper mutual understanding, and that maybe some questions might be answered, or answer might be thought of at least. And also regarding clear and reliable framework conditions, what is important is standardization. So the Dean, for example, is very active in the standardization processes regarding certain areas of blockchain technology. The fourth area of action where we have put measures forward are digitized public administration services. So I would like to highlight actually one project which is quite famous, which is from our Federal Migration Office. There is a project where the identity of a refugee, or the status of the refugee seeking process, of the asylum seeking process of a refugee, can be seen automatically by all the different actors which are involved. So from my understanding, it makes huge sense to use blockchain technology in this case, because it actually makes the processes really more efficient and allows actors who might not trust each other that much to work together very efficiently. And we also, as I said before, are taking part in the European Blockchain Partnership, which has as the aim to provide public administration services. And we have put forward some very interesting, so there's one use case on diplomas, and we have put forward some very interesting actors in Germany who are working on the diploma exchange, or in the verification of diploma use case with certain universities, and this use case will be probably implemented in the European blockchain services infrastructure. And the fifth area of action I would like to highlight is knowledge networking or cooperation. So there, for example, we are going to put forward a dialogue series where we will talk to certain topics more and deeply in the blockchain technology with external stakeholders. So, yeah, maybe I would like to give you a glimpse of two measures in the energy sector. So these are measures that are still not live, but they're going to start this year. So actually we have conducted a study, like a feasibility study, of the smart meter gateways, which are measuring actually how much, or which are the connection of the energy which comes into a house and which goes out to a house, that they can be linked up via blockchain technology, and if these smart meter gateways can basically, via blockchain technology and smart contracts, can put themselves and register themselves into a central database, which then can be accessed by different actors who are involved in the energy process. So this probably will start in this year. The feasibility study was positive, and so we hope that there will be also a pilot project. Furthermore, we are going to establish a cross-technology piloting laboratory for the energy sector, where we are going to test how different technologies, as blockchain technology, what potentials they have in the energy sector, and how, what efficiency gains can be made with the use of these technologies. The last measure is actually one where proposals could be submitted until the 10th of January. Now the proposals are being evaluated. So we are going to have regional showcase initiatives where we are going to have different ID providers, so identity providers, where we can see if they're interoperable and in which situations they might be used. And the aim of this so-called showcase initiative is that the identity solutions are going to be spread out a little bit more, because we have already some like island solutions, and we want to put them more into the, maybe not mass adoption, but into a broader adoption, and make possible that they can expand also. So yeah, this was a glimpse of the blockchain strategy, and actually I'm finished by now. Still have some minutes, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thanks a lot for that comprehensive introduction, Sarah. So we have 4 minutes left to answer a few burning questions. Sarah is here for a few more minutes, so take your chance.
I think you have forgotten an active founding project of BMWi, Schaufenster Blockchain Region Mittweida. It's founded by 50 million euros, and it's active since more than 1 year. And we are developing different applications in the public sector and so on.
Thank you very much. No, it wasn't meant as a comprehensive. So there are 44 measures. Maybe I forgot to say that in the 5 areas of action, there are 44 measures, and I was just giving like some overview into some measures. There are a lot of more measures. So it was the GIZ measures were also just there. 2 I mentioned, I think 1. So there are several measures they put forward. BMWi is also having several measures, logistics and supply chain. I was just not able to mention them all. Actually, what we are currently doing, I don't know if I shall mention it because it should be more adapted more quickly. We're just looking into our website, and we want to have a better website for the blockchain strategy, so that information on all the projects that are currently being funded are also there. It takes a little time. I'm a little bit sorry for that. So it's a little bit embarrassing, but that will soon be there. And then all measures which are funded are going to be there.
Well, actually, we'll take the blame on our side, because the slot of Sarah is too short to mention all the great projects in Germany. Next time we'll give her an hour, and then...
Thank you. Hi, my name is Caspar Rudolfs from Gimli, and I have a question on perhaps a little bit of a controversial topic. Let's blame perhaps the Dutch rudeness, but to me it feels a little bit strange or incomplete to have a full-day event about collaboration and blockchain innovation without touching upon something that's very current, and that's the implementation of AML5 regulations. As you know, in the Netherlands, there's a lot of controversy about how the Dutch government is planning to implement all kinds of regulations that will form significant hurdles to especially smaller startups. But we also learned about the German plans to implement it, and I believe that may implement perhaps even stronger hurdles than in the Netherlands. Is that something that you could reply on?
It's very difficult for me to reply, as actually, as I said, the initiative for the blockchain strategy is in the Ministry of Finance and in our ministry, and actually the competency for the fifth AML or for any AML directive is in the Ministry of Finance. So for sure, we as the Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy, we are looking into the process as soon as there is, as it's called in Germany, a Referentenentwurf, so a first draft of the law. We are looking into it, but the actual competency is with the Ministry of Finance, and they are doing it. So apart from speculations, I cannot comment on that.
Okay. Thank you, though.
Sorry.
Hello, my name is Nathan van Ee. I'm legal counsel at Blockchain Helix, and I thoroughly enjoyed your talk. I just wanted to ask you about Germany's involvement in the European blockchain partnership and how you were supporting that, both on a European level and on a national level. I was wondering if you could go to a bit more detail on that.
Yeah, I can give you some more details. So actually, the European Blockchain Partnership was founded actually almost 2 years ago, so in April 2018. There was a digital day in Europe, and then several secretaries of states from several member states of the European Union signed the declaration to form the European Blockchain Partnership. And at the beginning, it was just a kind of informal structure where the member state representatives met and talked about how to make some guidelines and drafted some deliverables, some first roadmaps how to implement a blockchain service infrastructure. And actually at the beginning of 2019, the process was a little bit more formalized. So actually we have in the European Blockchain Partnership, there's a policy group which consists basically of representatives of the ministries from all member states. I believe that all member states of the European Union are now members of the partnership. I'm not sure, there were 2 missing. The last time I saw the one was missing, so I'm not sure if it's still missing or not. But I believe almost all, and Liechtenstein and Norway are part of the partnership as well. So there's this policy group which shall give guidelines and shall define the overarching principles and how the overarching roadmap, how to move forward. And then there's a technical group, and from the representatives from Germany, there are from our network agency, so the Bundesnetzagentur, and also one representative from the Fraunhofer Institute, who work on the technical specifications for the infrastructure. And then we have 4 use cases in the European, which are thought of being implemented as first in the European blockchain service infrastructure, and they are now being implemented because now is the phase where a test version of this first version of the infrastructure is being implemented. So I believe the nodes that are going to participate are currently being set up, and there will be a first live version by beginning of February, so in 2 weeks time actually. And there will be test versions with test data with some of the use cases. So there's a use case on diploma, there's a use case on self-sovereign identity, there's a use case on notarization, and a use case on trusted documents, I believe. And in all of these use cases, there are also experts from all member states and also from Germany. Did that answer your question a little bit?
Yeah, it went into sufficient detail, but I'll ask you a couple more questions later on.
I'm happy to answer them. Actually, we, as the German government, is currently elaborating some criteria to be able to have a very broad participation and to invite everybody who is who is interested in participating in infrastructure to submit interests, but this is kind of a process because we first need to define criteria, who is going to be able to participate, and once we have defined them, then we're going to, I think, start a process, like a call for interest. So yeah, we are very interested in having many German actors inside the process as well.
Thank you so much.
All right, so we're done with our program. Thanks a lot for the closing words and for taking the questions, Sarah. That was very informative.
Yeah, thank you very much.
For those who are going to be in the evening program, Sarah is also going to be there in the evening, so you can continue talking. And now talking about the evening, we mentioned several times, those who have a wristband, the bus is there at 5:30. So the bus stops right in front of Factory. There's a big flag, so when you exit the building, it's going to be there in 15 minutes. If you feel confident and empowered, you can walk there alone and wait there. If that's not the case, I will be leaving from here in around 5 to 6 minutes, so you can just follow me and I'll guide you there. And if you haven't registered yet, and you still need your wristband, Lydia is going to be here for another 5 minutes, more or less, and then she's gone as well. And then you have to find your way yourself to the embassy. So with that, I thank you for this great afternoon. I think we developed a lot of new connections between Germany and the Netherlands, and we hope that many of you will come to the Blockchain Coalition and continue connecting Berlin and the Netherlands. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of you tonight and some others in other events. Enjoy your evening, and thanks for being here.